Mr. John Mollis or Molis.
Molis.
I understand it's different depending on which side of the checkpoint you're on. But Mr. Molis, he's traveled the world. He's done all kinds of data center installations, cybersecurity recoveries. He's done a lot. So definitely ask him questions. Take what you can learn from him. I mean, it's good stuff. John, it's all yours.
Good evening. Thank you for guys for having me come out and speak with you guys. My name is John Molis, as Professor Saldana. I always have a hard time saying that, but that's
So do I.
okay. As Professor Saldana mentioned, I've been in IT for over 20 years and had the opportunity to see some different parts of the world. Mostly travel around the U.S., but I have a couple of accounts that send me global to do data center installs. My current role is architect of data center deployment services at Insight. We have an office here in the Valley in McAllen. Insight does solutions and services and sales of computer equipment for organizations of any size. So you need something, we'll sell it to you, we'll sell you the services and to come install it, and even the support afterwards in certain instances. So a little bit more about me. I'll kind of get into my background a little bit. And please, at any point, if you have any questions or you see something out there that hey, what's the deal on that? Go ahead and ask. Please do. I want to try and make this as interactive as possible. But as I mentioned earlier, over 25 years of IT experience. I mean, I've been around doing this stuff for a while. Moved to the Valley. I'm a Valley transplant, so I came down in 2018. And as you can see from my prior experience, I've kind of done it all. Starting with help desk technician, working my way up into LAN administration, telecommunications to include WAN technologies, PBX, voice over IP, systems administrator, a collaboration delivery engineer. So in that role, more going out to install data center delivery and solutions architect. Question?
So I'm looking at your background. I see like prior experience. First thing was help desk technician.
Mm-hmm.
Not really like the beginning of like you break into what you do today.
It was, and there's an interesting story on how that came to be, and I'll share that here in a little bit. But yeah, no, that's a good question. Yes, it was that's the gateway right there. That's where I started. Again, my current role at Insight, I'm an architect, but specializing in data center deployment services. I'm the guy who goes out and helps build the statements of work for what my peers do when we go install. Lists out all the order of operations, what needs to happen first, how we do it, and make sure we're following some kind of standard when we do our deployments. Some of the companies I've worked for, in no particular order, but I've had experience in government services. With Transactive Corporation was my first real job. EBT, so they actually, back in the 90s, started the Lone Star Card program for the state of Texas. And worked with them in Austin doing that. GTEC, IGT, GTEC became IGT. They actually run the lottery here in Texas and many other states and other jurisdictions around the world. I would say they were the first company to send me abroad to do some work. State government, I did work as a contractor for the Department of Information Resources. So I got to see what it's like working for the state and being a part of the state. It's a whole different beast. State government is very different from the private sector, from commercial and even local and education. It's a very different animal. And as a contractor with DIR, I worked with Health and Human Services, supporting a very large call center and data center platform with several other of my contractor peers. Energy providers. I know y'all might have seen these guys out here. They are one of the energy providers in this area. And with those guys, I was a sysadmin and help desk technician, so kind of did both, a little bit of both. There is a difference, you know. Help desk supporting the end user, supporting, you know, desktops, laptops, and then systems administration and LAN administration actually there too, taking care of all the servers and systems that support the users, and in those days supported our client base as well. I've worked for a manufacturer. Worked for Dell Technologies as a solutions architect. So with Dell, meeting with our clients here throughout the valley, and my area was actually from Corpus and down to the valley, all the way up the border to El Paso. So I had a pretty large area that I covered. I had several big accounts in El Paso too, so I spent time between here and El Paso supporting Dell and our clients. And then IT solutions and services providers. I work currently for Insight. I've also worked for another company called Red River. Red River does a lot of federal work, but they also do have some commercial, but mostly work for the federal government. That's some interesting stuff there too, let me tell you. And then Natera Networks was a company that used to exist in Plano, but now it has been acquired by NetSync. I know you guys have met some of the folks from NetSync, but they actually rolled into that quite a while ago. Any questions so far? Nope.
How many years did you stay in one position, like, before you hopped around?
Man, that's a loaded question. So some of these changes actually were as a result of timing, you know, the environment. For example, I left Dell not of my own choosing. It was part of their workforce reduction. But, you know, when one door closes, another one opens, and actually led to a really interesting opportunity to help remediate a large corporation that had just been recently attacked. So I'll get into that later. Others, to grow, to move on. And something that you guys will find as you move on, sometimes if you want to make that next step to the next level, like you want to go from this help desk technician, well, you want to move on to be more than just a help desk guy or more than just a LAN administrator. Sometimes you got to make the move to get that kind of jump. There's a lot to be said about staying with someone, staying with a company, staying there, and having that comfort, that position. But the doors don't always. There's not always opportunities for that. And sometimes when you want to grow, you got to look outside and see what else is out there. Sometimes you might find that there's something out there, and then you go say, "Hey, look, I'm thinking about going to do this," and it could open doors where you're at. But other times, like, well, maybe you should go pursue that because you'd be great at that, you know. I always believe that if you have a good manager, a good leader is going to be one who prepares you for your next job. Now, obviously, they don't want you to go because, you know, you're there working for them. But a good leader will prepare you for your next role, and you always got to look for that. And in some cases, it's been a leadership thing. You know, I just was not getting the support that I felt I needed, and I was still wanting to grow, so I made the choice to move. One case, again, like I said, timing. Transactive shut down. They were being phased out, so I had to find something else. So it's just timing. You know, yeah, it looks kind of funny. There's a lot of different places I've worked for. One that I keep coming back to for whatever reason, Insight. But hey, I'll work for them as long as they'll have me. And each time I've left and come back, it's been in a more appropriate role for me as I've grown. Does that kind of answer the question? Okay. There was another one.
Yes, so you kind of mentioned a couple of different, I guess, status of employment, like saying like, oh, here with state is very different animal as opposed to private.
Right.
I also heard you mention something about like a consulting type role.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, between the two, I'm sure they all, you know, they have their advantages and disadvantages.
Yes.
But between the two, I mean, do you think it's better to focus on job security and like secure a job where it's a permanent status, or those consulting jobs? Because I find those to be a little lucrative and kind of empty.
It's a good question. Very good question. And I'll say it really depends on you. What is important to you in your life? What is important to you, in general, right? Yes, consulting and consultative type roles, very lucrative. I mean, you can realize some really good, make some good salaries, but there are some pros and cons, as you mentioned. If you're a contractor, you're paying your own taxes. You may not have benefits. But again, if you're making more money, you could pay for your own benefits. If you're single, oh man, if I was, when I was single, no kids, no responsibilities, if I had been at the level I needed to be a good consultant, that's all I would have done. Because I'm healthy, well, not anymore, but I was healthy at the time, no kids, no wife, no commitments. Oh man, I could have really just, yeah, absolutely. But for me, what's more important to me is making sure that I have something with benefits so I can take care of my family. I got 3 kids, and and with my wife and my kids, sometimes they're pretty healthy, but they're kids, they're little, and they're gonna get into stuff. They're gonna get hurt. And one of my son's actually autistic and ADHD. I can't imagine not having the means to provide for his needs, and because I was one of the ones who was like, I don't want to give him meds. I really don't want to give him meds, but in the long run, it's the best thing we did for him because he's got focus now. He's making good grades. He's actually learning, and eventually he'll get to a point where he doesn't need them anymore. So that's.
I guess you're saying that depending on what your needs are, and like for yourself, you're a father first, provider, so kind of gravitate more towards the permanent role, have that job security, have those benefits. But you're saying, if you're the other way and you're single, no kids, no responsibility, you're chasing the paper, definitely look at the consulting thing.
And one thing about the consulting roles is you'll get a lot of exposure too. You'll get to meet a lot of different people. You get to network potential clients. If you have the means to do it, like for example, let's just say you married, wife has a job with benefits, and you can go off and do consulting, why not? You just be on her plan. I have a good friend of mine out in Arizona. He's a data protection consultant. Everything like Commvault, Veritas. What's the other one? I can't think of off the top of my head. Veeam. He does do Veeam, but just anything data protection he can do. And his wife has a very good job where she's got benefits and can help. Even if he didn't work, she can carry the household. But he consults. He's a consultant, so he's doing well. He just bought an RV.
How does one go about that? Like, is there like a consulting firm you have to join, or can you do it independently and just with the networking is how you get contracts and things like that, or what's the nature of getting into consulting?
There's all different avenues. Yes, you could do all the above. You could try and do it on your own. There are some companies that you can sign up with. For example, now here's one that's they don't have as many high-paying tech jobs, but they do have some that come in every so often. Like one company is called Field Nation. You sign up with them. You can do your background checks, drug testing, so that way people know that you've got a clean record. And yeah, right. And that elevates you into certain other roles. I'm a member. I'm part of that organization just because there was a point in time where I needed to be. I'll explain later. And
Is that still one?
I don't know if Insight Global's doing that. I think so. They might be one.
I know they used to post up that they call you for bank installed jobs and stuff like that.
Insight Global, not to be confused with Insight.
I thought they were the same.
They are different. Insight Enterprises, Insight Computer, Insight. Yeah, there's all Insight North America, but not Insight Global. Not the same. Yeah, that's another one I've heard of. But anyway, with Field Nation, like for example, Field Nation's one of them. Yeah, and that's more of a entry level, I would say. But I used it when I was contracting for one of these guys as my vehicle to contract.
Barrister. Is it not?
Barrister, I've heard of that one too. Now, again, like with Field Nation, I get requests all the time. Hey, can you go install a VoIP phone at this hotel, or go install a video phone for this user? Or I think the funniest one that I saw recently was to go install when the movie what was the last Kung Fu Panda movie that the last one that came out? The fourth one, yeah. So there was a job request in there for somebody to go install set up the cardboard cutout thingies, the stand-ups at the movie theater, in I think out in Rio. So they wanted somebody to go out there and just stand those up. Those don't pay, but that's just some of the stuff that you'll see in these queues. Hang a TV, hang a monitor, like that. There's some things like that. Again, Field Nation, I don't know if it's I haven't dug deep enough to see what kind of tech jobs are in there, but Insight used Field Nation as a contracting vehicle for contractors to work through them. So,
Gigs that you can kind of get from there, and they vary.
the biggest thing is going to be the network, right? You got to get your name out there and start meeting people and understanding, getting people to understand where your skill sets lie, what your strengths are. Because then, hey, look, I know, we're doing this job, we need this. Hey, I know a guy. Yeah.
So start building a reputation.
Start building a reputation. That's if you're going to get into consulting, that's really where it's going to be. Building a reputation, getting in with one of these kind of companies, because these guys, well, not these guys anymore, they're gone, but one of these guys would be the ones to say, hey, you know what? We know this guy. We can bring him in, and he can help us with some cybersecurity stuff. Anything else? Oh.
So, goes back a little bit to the very first question that was asked. I'm very interested with help desk technician. But I guess my main question would be how long did you spend working as a help desk technician, and then how long did it take you to find your next job?
Okay. I was a help desk technician about 1.5 years. And my management there at the time, I guess, saw that I had a much deeper interest and much stronger aptitude to grow and learn more. And he signed me up for a networking essentials class. And then next thing I know, I'm the backup LAN administrator. I'm still doing the help desk stuff, but I'm starting to do LAN stuff now. Fast forward about another year, we lost the company makes plans to shut down Transactive. They make plans to shut down. They're going to sell off all the pieces of the business and start and basically sell it off to other companies, other providers to provide the services to the state. And a lot of people left. They're just like, all right, ship's sinking, we're bailing out. So this role, senior telecom engineer, opened up because all the guys that were managing our wide area networks and our front end security systems were gone.
So it created opportunity.
It created opportunities. So yeah, I stayed around a little bit longer. Took some. They threw some more money at us. At the ones who stayed. Hey, please stay so we can keep running the ship until we're actually done. Yeah, it's pretty much how it went. And so I moved into senior telecom engineer. Now, one I didn't put up here was because even as the senior telecom engineer, I still had LAN administrative duties and help desk stuff. I still helped with the help desk guys from time to time.
You were just taking on more responsibilities.
Right. Yeah. I'll tell the story about that when we get a little further along. Any other questions on anything here at this point? Okay. So now let's get to know me a little bit more. Oh wait. Oh, let's talk about an architect, right? I forgot about this slide. So whenever I tell people, oh, hey, you're an architect, they automatically think number one, right? But this is actually from Google. number two, that's more in line with what I do. So a person who designs hardware, software, or networking applications and services of a specified type for a business or other organization, right? So designing that data center solution. Hey, we need to set up a disaster recovery site. So how do we do that? How do we get what's in this building replicated and running in this building in case we have a disaster? So those are the kind of roles that an architect would be involved with from the computing sense. So what does the architect do? Design stuff like that.
It looks so cool.
It is.
It looks so cool. I mean, it's like a kid's dream. Like, oh yeah, I want to work there.
This is actually a data center that I installed. So in this particular instance, I wasn't necessarily architecting the technology itself, what went in, but from a deployment perspective, architecting, how it was installed, how it was laid out, how the cables were run, how the cables were labeled. All those little details was on me. So in these cabinets are 45U cabinets, 40U rack units, so 45 rack units, or 48, I can't remember. Anyway, they're tall. And there's 7 here. In the middle, they put their networking equipment, their networking, like all the switches and whatnot, and then 7 more this way. And there's, I think when we were done with this project, 15 rows of this. Yeah. These are Dell M1000E blade server chassis. They each have 16 blades in them, and there's 4 in each cabinet. Those things draw massive amounts of power. That's another thing that us architects have to keep in mind. Making sure we're balancing out the power. Making sure that these guys have enough redundant power. Should a power supply die, it doesn't take down the system. And so each one of these has 6 power supplies each. So 4 PDUs on the back to support that load. And yeah, these things were massive.
You said it was 7 per row and plus.
7 this way, well, so 15 total. 7 and 7 on each side with a networking cabinet with all their networking infrastructure down the middle.
So like more than 200 different units?
What's that? How many?
200?
Well, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but in this row, you've got, so 7 times, oh wait, hold on. 14 times 4 for the number of chassis, then multiply that times 16 for the number of blade servers in there. Yeah. And that'll tell you the number of servers in that row.
768.
How many power supplies in each one and how many volts? Don't forget that.
What's that?
How many power supplies does each box have and how many volts does it require?
Okay. These chassis have 6 power supplies and they only support 200 volt or better. So 208 up to 240 is what those take. They were using 6,000 watt power supplies.
Continuous power because you never turn off.
Now, keep in mind, these blade server chassis are designed to run on half of that. So those are built in for redundancy. But once you start spinning these things up, they could scale up and start consuming more power from the power supplies up to like, I believe, 5 with 1 spare in case the power supply goes out. So
prior to deploying all this, as an architect, you literally perform all these calculations, lay out exactly what you're going to do, so you know exactly what's going to be done before it's done.
Yep.
You know how much power it's going to take.
We can give
Estimations because it's going to fluctuate.
right. We give an estimation of at max, fully populated with everything. I mean, these things running at capacity. This is what your power consumption could be.
That's amazing.
Crazy question because I know some people might be wondering, what if someone wanted to turn one of those chassis into a gaming rig in their room.
Well, okay. First of all, these things don't have GPUs. Not at least gaming quality GPUs. These things are the only thing these guys, and I can tell you what they were used for. So they would cluster these rows of servers together using a very specialized software, and with clustering, they would use these to simulate chip designs. So back in the old days, build the machine.
John, so you mentioned it a couple of times, and because we're dealing with the social media generation that love to share their life story, there's a reason why you can't tell us the name of the company or these things. There's a reason why, right?
Yes.
Can you tell them why you can't go and elaborate everything on?
So of course, as part of our, with the company that I work for, Insight, and others, there's agreements in place, services agreements, that prevent us from talking openly about certain clients and what they do. Now, I can tell you about one of them later, and I'll explain. They're the ones that send me all over the place. But I can tell you about these guys because it's on our website. They share their success stories with us. But certain ones, they have a very strict requirement for privacy, and they don't want people to know, hey, this is
what they got, this is what they're working with.
this is what they use.
Corporate secrets.
Corporate security, right? Because what if one of the other guys finds out how they're doing this,
And they emulate that.
and they emulate it, and now they've got an edge?
They lose their competitive edge.
Bingo. A lot of it's done for competitive, for competition, but also there are some other reasons why for, to protect assets, safety, to keep bad actors out too. Because all you need is to, oh hey, there's something there. I can go start figuring out how to hack into it.
Impersonate a technician of a lower level that nobody knows and just kind of dress the part, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We see the movies.
Yeah, no, you've seen the movies, you've read it in the news. It happens. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously if the company was to find out that you went in,
If the company was to find out, I could lose my job.
And then that would tarnish your reputation.
That would tarnish my reputation for other work.
But I know what that is.
Yep. Yeah. So, about me. Let's drop all the, titles and whatnot. I was born in Austin. Yeah. Okay. Graduated from Austin High School. Those were my favorite classes. And was active in Boy Scouts. I put that in there because there's actually a reason why. There's a reason why. That leads to something. That's my house growing up. This is actually like 2009, I think. My uncle was living there at the time, but that's it. That's what I came from. Not much. Well, so yes, that was a house that was in the family for quite some time. My mom, my stepdad, and my brother and I lived there from 76 to 93. So my junior year, we moved around the corner. You see that silver building in the back, that shed? There's a property there. There's a house that's twice the size of this one. That's where my mom lives now. But that's it, man. 4 of us crammed in that little house, and it was cozy. But humble beginnings. I didn't have a whole lot. Didn't have much to speak of.
It's just a reminder of how far you've come, what you've accomplished.
Absolutely.
It kind of rallies you to make you humble.
it only cost me a roll of sweet tart to get it to come up.
That's true. Oh, it's time for a sweet tart, yes. Yeah, that's where I came from.
I need to go from physics to broadcast journalism.
Oh, okay, so good question. So physics, I don't know what it was about physics. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to take physics. Oh, physics is so hard. I was like, really? This is the only class I got like hundreds in, ever. Not even PE. Physics. That's the kind of nerd I was. Built mousetrap cars, built paper, notebook paper and Elmer's glue, bridges, like to and hang. We did all kinds of fun stuff with physics, but that was one of my favorite high school classes. Broadcast journalism. That was a weird elective that just came up one year. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna check it out. My school, Austin High School, had a media lab. So they had one of the TV stations in Austin donated basically their entire studio. They upgraded, so we had all their older cameras. So cameras like from the 70s and early 80s. We had their entire system, broadcast quality system. And there was at the time, Austin Independent School District had vocational classes. Actually, oh yeah, I did put it in there. They had vocational classes. So you could take a media class and learn about how to work in media, radio, TV. So they made a regular elective out of it and called broadcast journalism. So the reporting aspect of it, but also just, very high level, the technology. I learned how to edit videos using tape machines, using VCR. Oh, well, not VCRs, but the old VTR, like gigantic, they were 3/4-inch tapes. I learned how to use those to edit videos and create news stories based, So that was a fun class. And at the time, there was a media group, and I can't remember who it was, but they started this thing called Channel 1, where they would install TVs in all the schools around the U.S. You remember them? Yep. They would install these TVs. I mean, back then, there were big CRT TVs, but each classroom would get one with the requirement that every day you had to play their news to the class. So it was like a kid, a younger, it was all geared to younger viewers, students, and it was all run by students. So it was like a 15-minute program that ran every day. We got to watch it every day, and because we had that technology in the rooms now, we turned that broadcast journalism into the video announcements. So we used the studio. We'd play the Channel 1 footage because they sent it over satellite like at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was something weird. They sent it in the middle of the night and recorded on a tape. We'd play it, and then after that, we'd go into our studio and do the school announcements. And with my experience there, I was involved with it pretty heavily to make like the wrestling team came to me and said, "Hey, we need to promote wrestling. We need to get wrestlers. We need more students to wrestle." I was like, "Okay, well, give me some footage." So they got me some footage. I edited it together. At the time, what was the song that was Onyx? Slam, da 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 da. Okay, so that was a big song at the time. I actually incorporated that into the video, and right as some dude was getting slammed, like slam, it was awesome. But sure enough, people started signing up for wrestling because they didn't know. So using things like that's why that became a really fun class for me, because I actually got to continue doing it throughout my high school career.
It's like a novelty.
Yeah. And then on the side, one of my hobbies, when I still lived in Austin, I owned a broadcasting company. So we would cover the local high school with football, girls basketball, softball, and baseball. And we'd broadcast them. That was cool, because whenever, sometimes I know for a fact we do broadcasting of football games, like the high school football game. We'd have listeners in Afghanistan that were stationed, or anywhere else in the world, listening in and sending us messages. Hey, we're listening in from Middle East or wherever. That was the coolest feeling. Be able to, hey, I'm listening to my nephew play football. Thank you for bringing us the broadcast. Really cool feeling. Really cool. And that was one of my hobbies. I know people are telling me, oh, I use the technology to connect people. And people would say, hey, you sound like you got a radio voice. I'm like, yeah, well, that's great. But I'm not the kind of I can't sit there and be like, takes a snap. I can't even put it together in my head. Watching it and doing the play-by-play, that's not me. I can offer color. Well, yeah, he put a pretty good hit on that guy. That's about all I can do. So I did that and produced it. Made it sound good, made sure it was getting uploaded to the servers, and made sure it was streaming. That's what I did. Auto tech. Yes, I was a mechanic. I don't tell anybody that, because then it's like, hey, my car's doing this clicking noise. What does that mean? I'm like, well, I don't know. It's clicking. That's all I can tell you. Band, That was fun. I played the clarinet. Okay, moving on. Off-season football. The only reason I like that so much is because I have never pushed myself harder physically. Man, when I was in high school, I was like a $120 soaking wet. I wasn't that big. I wasn't fast. I wasn't strong. But that taught me a lot about pushing my limits and just how far I could go. And then Boy Scouts, that's something I did from 5th grade on. You know, it's one of those things that, yeah, it taught me a lot of different life skills, a lot of things to know. I also brought my best friend with me from 5th grade. He called me recently, says, you know, thank you for dragging me to that meeting. I'm like, why? He says, well, because if you didn't, dude, I'd probably be in jail. I'd probably be in prison. People I was hanging out with, that wouldn't have been getting in anything good. So, very humbling.
Taught some good values.
Yeah, and that's important later. So, how did I get into all this? How did I get into IT? What was my first experience with a computer? That. It's a TI-99 4A. That thing came out in the early 80s. And I got to experience that for the first time in 2nd grade.
That predates the Radio Shack.
Actually, it was a competitor to the TRS-80 and the Apple II. And just for reference, you know, you could look this all up on Wiki. But, I mean, you look at the CPU speed on that thing, most modern processors are 1,000 times faster as far as the speed of the CPU. Memory, I mean, you couldn't even fit that image into the computer memory. I mean, if you wanted to take that image and put it in, you couldn't even do that. And it booted up to a very, well, to BASIC.
The size of the hardware was much bigger, and the actual capacity was a lot smaller.
Yeah. I heard someone tell me this, and I don't know how true this is, but someone once told me that if cars advanced at the same rate as computers, it would be cheaper to buy a new car than to park your car, pay for parking, if cars advanced the way computers did. I don't know how true that is, or if that even applies now with inflation, but who knows. Still, that was the first thing. I was in 2nd grade, and they taught us programming using this a language called Logo. Anyone heard of this? Heard of Logo? Logo is like it's a vector-based. You have the concept is you have a turtle. They call it the turtle, and the command you go forward 10. The turtle moves 10 pixels or 10 units up. You say right 90. The turtle turns to the right. You say 10, forward 10. Then you say right 90. It turns right again. 10, you know, and you can make a box. So a good language for drawing and making, you know, different little designs. So here I am in 2nd grade. I'm playing around with this. We're supposed to make a box, right? Box. Well, I made my box in record time. Then took it, made another box next to it. Then put a roof on it. Then put grass on the field. Changed the color. I learned how to change the color. Started going back and forth to draw the grass. Made a house. And my teacher walks over and he's like, "Who told you to do that?" I said, "I just kind of figured it out." He's like, "Okay." So after that, I asked my mom, I said, "Mom, can I get a computer?" "Estás loco." This thing was $570 something dollars, almost $600, right, for this setup. And, or I know, actually, I think it was more. I think 500 was just this part here. So it was a lot more than that, which
Like a $3,000, $4,000 system like that.
I was going to say, yeah. Back in today's dollars, that's exactly what that would have cost, yeah. Like between 2 and 3 for that. So, yeah, that's the local. She was like, "Nuh-uh, we can't afford that."
What was the price of a car back then, right?
Yeah, well, it would be the price of a car today back then. Wait.
My mom told me that like her first Toyota was her first car, Corolla, and she bought it brand new, and she said she paid $4,000.
Yeah. So that's what that would have cost in today's dollars. But it was like 5 something back then. So yeah, it's just inflation, you know.
My dad had bought an IBM computer to use as a point of sale system for video rental, cash register and all, in the late 80s. And I remember him paying about $7,000 for that one system. And they didn't even have it. Well,
Yeah.
they had more memory than that because it was late 80s.
Oh yeah. But still. Now this didn't have a hard drive. This used cartridges. You put the cartridge in here. But it did have a floppy drive. So, I mean, you know, it was pretty cool. I thought it was the coolest thing. So this was 2nd grade. Well, fast forward 5 years, and I start learning about this, the floppy disk. I started buying these. I was in 7th grade. And the only reason I started buying them is because I wanted to start collecting software. I still didn't have a computer at home, but I had a stack of these things. And we had, at that time, we had Apple II computers everywhere. Apple at that time just said, hey, education, here, have our computers. And that worked.
You're right. They, like in the schools, you would go into the computer lab, and there was always like it was always Apple computers.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So
And teaching us the difference between like the operating systems. Okay, this is Windows, this is Mac, and it was different.
yeah. Oh yeah. So I was actually looking for some 3.5 inch drives or floppies. I still have some somewhere. I just moved recently, so I don't know where they are. But I was going to bring them in so y'all could check them out if y'all hadn't seen them before. But the 5 1/4s, I had a stack of them. I was in junior high. No computer, so what was I going to do with them? The only time I used them was at school. So I would stay after, and me and some buddies of mine that also kind of did the same thing, we would share software. So technically, I guess we were the pirates of the junior high. Because you know it's bad. You know it's bad when your computer literacy teacher calls you aside and says, hey, do you got a copy of Copy 2 Plus? I'm like, yes, I do. Let me go find you one. Which one do you? What version do you want? You know it's bad when your teachers know that you being I had my own printer cartridge too, because they'd get mad when I'd print stuff out for personal reasons. So I saved up and went and bought my own. So I just switch them out, put my own cartridge in, and print whatever. Because I had the print shop. Like I said, I had tons of this. I had the print shop. So I'd make banners. Hey, Mijo, can you make me a thing for the party? Yeah, I got you. No, I got it. No worries. So. Yep. Yeah. So I never got to play with these. These are an older technology. These are the 8 inch. Those were fun. The 12 inch. Yeah, but I did get to use these.
That's a bigger one for wormies run. It's like that's supposed to hit the wall. It's a game.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, there's so many different names for that. But those reels, my first job, before I got into IT, I mentioned I was working for a company called Transactive. They ran the Lone Star card. Well, every day when the banks would settle up, they would pay all the retailers for all their EBT transactions. So if the Stop and Shop sold $300 worth of EBT, at the end of the day, that would get transferred into their accounts. Originally, they were sending this data over dial-up. They would call up to the bank in Houston, and it would just start sending it. It took almost an hour to send it over dial-up. And if it failed in the middle of it, like there was noise on the line or something happened, that was it. It was done, had to be restarted. And they found that, well, that's not a good way to do this. So they got in touch with the bank, and as part of my tasks, I would take that tape reel to the bank directly. After 2 o'clock, I would take it, they would run it, and that was it. It would take about 2 minutes to run. Mm-hmm. That was pretty much how it was, SneakerNet. Well, sneaker plus van. Because my first real job was as a courier. That's where I started. I started as a courier. Why did I get a courier job? Well, because I went, after high school, of course, you saw that I was an auto tech. So after high school, I went to go work for my shop teacher. He had his own personal shop. So I was doing state inspections. I was, minor jobs, tune-ups, oil changes, brake jobs, just little stuff. Well, I just really found that it really wasn't my gig. I just really didn't like being. I mean, it's nice to know, right? I can work on my own vehicles, but I really didn't enjoy it as much as much as I thought I would. So I get a call from one of my old scout leaders. He knew I was looking for a job. One of my old scout leaders, he says, "Hey, I'm looking for a courier to work for me over at the office." I said, "Oh, okay." So I tapped into that Boy Scout network that I had from, being in scouting at multiple levels and got my first job as a courier. So I worked in the mailroom, just kind of hanging out and twice a day I'd get in my van, go deliver stuff to the parent company, G-Tech, go deliver stuff to Health and Human Services. You see kind of the connection now? They're all tied together because I knew all these people from all these different organizations. And so I'd make these runs twice a day. And then when I wasn't there, I'd work in the mailroom, sorting mail, sending mail out, just helping to package stuff up. So he doesn't look as handsome as I do, but that was me. And having that work, finally making my own money, I bought my first computer. I was 20 when I bought my first computer. And it was a 486, kind of like that.
No turbo button.
No, I don't see a turbo button on that one. But point is, I had nothing, guys. I started from nothing. I had to work as a courier for quite some time, save up money, and I bought this used from a guy that worked in our depot. He was one of the guys that repaired the point of sales devices. And he's like, "Hey, I'm selling a computer. You want to buy it? $400." I'm like, "All right, cool." So got my first computer.
And at that time, it was a good price.
Yeah, for me it was. So just considering, to build it, well, which I didn't know how to at the time, would have probably cost me at least twice that. So
What are the current specs of your current PC?
which one?
Your workstation?
So for work, I've got a MacBook Pro. It's one of the M2s. Okay, there's a reason why.
No, that's not nothing. We got history with that.
Okay, there's a MacBook Pro.
John, I had you up here, John.
Well, hold on. The only reason I said MacBook Pro because I had an option. But the only reason well, there's one in the bag over there too, along with my Dell laptop over there. So
I'm wearing Windows to this one too now.
I am not a Windows guy. I'm not a Mac guy. I'm not a Linux guy. I'm an everything guy. I know them all, and I use them all for various things. So what am I running? A MacBook Pro for my work PC. It's a MacBook Pro M1 Max, I think. So it's got the ARM-based processor. Dude, the battery life on that thing is amazing. I can work all day on that thing without plugging it in, and it's great. But I can't do any virtualization on it because it's not x86. So it's got challenges. For that, I keep my personal Dell, which that one's an i5. I think it's like a 12th generation Intel. So it's not a newer one, it's an older one, but it does fine. I find that I had my gaming days. I used to build gaming rigs back in the day. They weren't anywhere near as powerful as gaming rigs today, and nor did we have a whole bunch of lights and flashy things. We were playing Doom, we were playing Quake, Unreal Tournament. Yeah, so my gaming was not very intense. So I didn't really have You know, you would think, hey, computer guy, oh, he's probably got a really badass system, doesn't he? Nope, pretty plain. But I'm an everything guy. I know that. I actually took a class on Windows 95 back in the day, but I know them both. I know, and I use them. And the reason I went Mac with my work PC is because our Windows images are locked down so tight that for engineers like us, we sometimes can't do some of the things we need to do to be able to, even on my Mac, to be able to do our jobs. Even on my Mac, I have to request permission to be an administrator so I can change my network settings. And if I'm going into a client where I need to match their network settings, you know, it's kind of a challenge. So security is important. Sometimes it can hinder you. It has its challenges. So here I am working in the mailroom one day, and I stayed after. I had a box of 3.5. I had like a stack of 3.5-inch floppies sitting on my desk, and I'm sitting there working on the computer. I left whenever I was working late. I'd leave the door open just in case somebody came to drop off a package. Sure enough, technology services manager walks in. He says, "Hey, I need to send this off to corporate. Is it too late to send it off?" I'm like, "Yeah, the mail's already gone." He goes, "Well, that's fine. It can go tomorrow." I was like, "Okay, cool." So he leaves it with me. And so I put it in the mail bin, and he looks and sees the floppy. He sees me looking at Windows 95 there because we ran Windows 95 in the office. He's like, "What are you doing?" I didn't have anything to hide. So I said, "Well, I just bought a computer. It's got Windows 3.1. I want to learn how to install Windows 95. So I'm copying the cab files off of the computer because we put them on the image. So I'm copying the files off so I can install it at home. And copying those files, you have to do a special format on the floppies and then copy the file. It's a pain. And if one of the floppies is bad, your whole installation's gone. So I'm copying these, and he's like, "Why don't you just go ask the help desk guys for a copy of that?" I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, we got boxes of that stuff. You want the floppies? We got those. You want the CDs? We got those too." I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." So the next day I did go upstairs and get a copy of each. And he turns to walk away as he was leaving the mailroom. As he turns to walk away, he gets about halfway down the hall, and I hear him stop, and he walks back. He pokes his head in the door and says, "You know, there is a help desk position open right now." I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, you should go for it." "You think so?" He goes, "I'm just looking at you, what you're doing right now. I think you've got the aptitude. I think you could do this. So you should give it a shot." So I applied for it, took a test. And the test, the questions on there involve technologies that aren't even around anymore, or they aren't even talked about anymore because they're just old concepts. It was so basic, and everything I knew on the test, I passed it with flying colors, but everything I knew was because I bought that piece of crap and started building it and started working on it and started messing around with it and playing with it. Everything I knew on that test came from that. And that is how I got into IT.
It's crazy how everything connected.
Yep.
And starting from the courier job to the curiosity of the computer, just being at that place at that time with that person that saw something you knew, you had a passion in it, because you did it every time there. Okay, then he recommends you for a job that you end up landing, and ever since you've been in IT.
Ever since then, I've been in IT. So I'm one of the few that kind of lucked into that. Have I finished my schooling yet? Of my formal schooling? No. Do I recommend it? Yes. So don't think that you're wasting your time here, because you're not. This is important. Get it done. It has in some cases slowed my progress, the lack of, but it hasn't stopped me completely. Experience does count for a lot. And the one thing I'll say, is that you may not land the dream job right away, but stick with it and get as much experience as you can, build up on it, learn everything you can, and take advantage. most companies will support you or sponsor you to do trainings. You know, if it's geared towards something that they can use. You know, if it's like if you're learning, you know, something very specific, you want to go for a certification, it could benefit them. They'll help you with that in most cases. But learn as much as you can and get that experience while you're at it.
So as an architect of deployment, if you're hiring, let's say, you know, a team to assist you in this, what would be your like top 3 interview questions that would kind of give you a good sense of, yes, you want to hire this person?
Man, you know, I've never actually been put. I can't actually honestly answer that easily because I'd have to think about that. Because I've never been in a situation where I've had to be on the hiring side of things. Things I would, you know, think in my mind that I would ask, where do you see yourself going with this position? You know, what are your goals? What are your life goals? Because as far as the role is concerned, where do you want to do with it? Because if you find somebody that's got the drive and the determination to take that and grow and do something, you know, that's one thing I'd be looking for, you know, motivation. Somebody that's motivated. Another thing I'd be looking for would be, well, team player, good sense of humor. Somebody that can get along with the rest of the team, understanding their personality and getting to know them a little bit better and understand how they're going to interact with the team. Because the other thing that's important is having somebody that's going to mesh well with your team. Because if you don't have a good cohesion there, it's hard. It's difficult to work with folks that are not willing to, that are not on the same page or going the same direction. Yeah, pretty much. And it doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be perfect. There are going to be differences in everybody. But that's the beauty of it, right? The diversity makes it special. And as long as you can find people that are kind of vibing with you and your team, you can take that can help build a very strong and cohesive team. Those are a couple of things I would look for. I mean, if I were in a hiring role. Was there a question? I mean, you know, but to be fair, I've never really been in that situation. But those are things that just think off the top of my head that I would kind of look for.
You're in a higher position, you know, being an architect. It means you take on a lot of responsibility. And so there's a team that you have, and I'm sure that maybe you're not directly the person that does the hiring, but you have some sort of input of who you kind of, you know, want to work with you, you know?
Yeah.
So I noticed the points that you were making, I didn't hear you once mention anything about the technical, like, history, like, oh, degree in this, or...
Because the other thing
you're real personable about the person being able to kind of go with everybody, be a team player, and their self-motivation and where they want to take it. But I didn't hear you say anything about education or training or certificates, and I noticed that. So that's also very important.
It is. Don't get me wrong, it is. That does help, right? It does help immensely. But a lot of the technical can be taught. I'm a case in point. I'm a good example of that. A lot of the technical can be taught. As I mentioned, my manager saw something in me and said, "Hey, I want you to be a land administrator too. I'm sending you some networking courses." So he did that. Okay, 99 comes rolling around. 1999. What's the next thing that happened, y'all? Anybody? Y2K. Y2K. That was the next big event, right? So my manager walks up to me one day. He brings me a Cisco router, a 2500 series router. They were just plain Jane, just ugly metal boxes, right? He brings it over, sets it on the desk with a floppy, a stick of RAM, and a console cable. And he says, "I need you to upgrade this thing using the RAM to add memory and the image that's on the floppy. I need you to upgrade this thing for Y2K compliance." And I looked at him, I was like, okay, how? And I never forget what he said. He goes, "If I have to do it for you, then why do I need you?" I was like, oh, shit. Okay. all right. And he starts laughing. He goes, go to our internet computer. Go to our internet computer. Go to Cisco's website. It'll have all the information there. But what did I do? I got on the internet computer. Found some information about how to load iOS on a router, how to upgrade the memory on that specific model. Printed it out, took it back to my desk. Later on that day, like, here it is, done. I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about Cisco. Only thing I knew is Cisco, okay, San Francisco, oh, okay, yep, I get it. Oh, and then the Golden Gate Bridge, yeah, all right, cool, yeah, I get it. That's all I knew about Cisco back then. I didn't even know we used them. And the next thing I know, I'm being put on a plane to go upgrade all the routers at our facilities around the US. So I did a maintenance run. I went out and upgraded all the routers to be able to support Y2K.
So when you travel, is it all paid and also paid?
So when it depends on the company, right? But for most corporations, yeah, you get a corporate card that you put your airline, your airfare, your rental car, your hotels, and your meals on that. And sometimes if there's other expenses, like say you need to go get parts for something, you can use it for that. I actually had to use my corporate card to buy a power supply for a Cisco router. We took an outage one morning. I got a call like at, same company, I get a call like at 2 in the morning. Hey, we just lost connectivity to everything. The whole system's down. Thankfully it was at night, so there was not a whole lot of anything going on. So I ran in, was there, I called TAC. Cisco TAC at that time, and they still do, they had a follow the sun model. So when you called the 800 number, it would route you to whatever area it was daytime. So I ended up getting on the phone with some guy from the UK. And I was on with this guy for hours just trying to figure out, can we do this? Can we get this system back online? He goes, we're just gonna have to send you another power supply. But the problem is, something's wrong with your maintenance agreement, so we can't just send it out to you. You're gonna have to pay for it. So I used my corporate card, said, here, pay for it, let's go. I got my boss's approval to do it. He says, yeah, just pay for it and we'll deal with that later. A couple $1,000s. So paid for it. They drove it down from Dallas to Austin. And as soon as I got it, went and installed it, everything came right back up. That was around 6 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah. So, yeah, all from that, like, to kind of summarize, yeah, I would look for the technical stuff, basics, right? You know, okay, do they know what a keyboard is? Do they know what this type of cable is? Do they know anything about what we do? If the answer is yes, bonus. If the answer is, well, yeah, I'm familiar with, but if I can tell, if I have an idea that this is a person that's motivated and interested, I can teach all that. I can teach all that. Or I can say, hey, you're going to go do this. I'll go with you, but you're going to learn by doing. So, good observation. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even bring that up as like, oh yeah, you need certs and this. Certs help, don't get me wrong. Certs do help. And education definitely helps. But it's not the only thing that's being looked for out there. Okay, yeah, so I told you, how did I get into IT? Short answer, curiosity. That's what got me there. So, at this point, I'll open it up. You know, yeah, what exactly do you do again? You know, these are just examples. So any questions you have, you want to know about where I've been, what I've been working on, you know, any of those things, just, anybody?
What happened in Las Vegas?
Okay. Well, this one didn't, because this one made national news. Actually, this made world news. Who all remembers the Las Vegas shootings? I was there.
Jason Alvey?
No, I wasn't at the concert. I heard the concert, but yeah, it was a big country concert. I was there. That was the same weekend and the same week as the NetApp Insight conference. Yeah, their convention, yeah. So it's their annual, so NetApp, I don't know if you're all familiar, NetApp's a storage provider. They sell storage like SAN and NAS systems. A little bit more complex than the average system, but they sell a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of companies that use them. So I was there for the conference. Funny story. I don't know if it's so funny, but it was an interesting story, I guess. So the two guys, my two peers from my team that were coming out to it, they had never been to Vegas before, one, and they'd never been to a conference like this. So I got there first. I got there early and went and registered. The conference was at the Mandalay Bay. So I went to the Mandalay Bay, got my conference materials, registered for the event, and went back to the MGM Grand where I was staying. So it's Mandalay Bay, Luxor, Excalibur, and then across the street, MGM Grand. So I went back to the MGM Grand to wait for one of my coworkers to show up. So the first one shows up. Young guy, never been to Vegas before. I'm like, dude, all right, we're gonna go have some fun. I said, let's go. Hey, you hungry? Let's go eat. Where do you want to go eat? And we look across the street. There's the Hooters. Of course, right? He goes, I've never been to a Hooters. I'm like, wait, what? You never been to a Hooters? Do you like wings? He goes, I love wings. Let's go eat. Come on, let's go. So we walked across the street from the MGM Grand, then over to the Hooters. It's kind of right across the street away, in a way. So we eat. It's already getting dark. We're still waiting for the third person to come in. He had a much later flight. And so we leave the Hooters. We can hear the concert in the distance. We start walking back to the light to cross. And at this point, we either keep going straight to go to the Strip, or we take a right, cross the street, and go back to the MGM Grand. And he says, I said, hey, well, do you want to go explore, or should we wait for Julio to come? He goes, let's go wait for Julio. Let's go, maybe we can go find a drink. I was like, hey, there's a whiskey bar over here at the MGM. Let's go hang out there and wait for him to show up. Okay, cool. So we cross the street. As we're entering the hotel, and mind you, if we would have gone straight toward the Strip, that was we could have seen probably the flashes and, seen it up, seen what was going on. So making that choice to go that way or that way, we went the other way. As I was walking, and I remember this, as I walked into the door, I started hearing pop, 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 pop. And I'm thinking, I wonder if they're doing fireworks. Because the way, I know what the sound of what firearms sound like, because I not up here, but I did serve in the military for a little bit. So I know the sound. And it didn't dawn on me because of, I guess, where we were and the way it reverberated. It didn't sound like fire, like gunfire. It sounded like fireworks. Maybe they're doing fireworks at the concert. All right, cool. Dismissed it.
It's just the acoustics.
Mm-hmm. Walked into the MGM, went and sat down at the bar, and we're just kind of hanging out. Then all of a sudden, I had never seen this before in my life. The entire casino just clears out. People running everywhere. Like, yeah. And then I started hearing people kind of like, shooter, and this and that. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? And I went to go ask somebody at the MGM, an MGM employee, and he's like, you need to get out of here. Follow everybody and get out of here. I was like, wait, what's going on? I'm not just going to start blindly following everybody. What's happening? You just need to go. I was like, shit. All right. So I told Bryson, he was, again, this Vegas newbie. He's like, this is his first experience in Vegas. I'm like, dude, really? I was like, and I could tell he was scared. I'm like, Bryson, stay close, follow me. So I weaved my way through the casino, back to the elevators to the rooms, and we went to the elevator to my room. I said, come with me. We're just going to let's go log in and see what's going on. Somebody's going to have something. Nothing on the news, nothing on turn on the TV, nothing yet. I'm like, Twitter. Twitter's going to be the source, because if something's going on right that minute, it's going to be there. So I start shooting Las Vegas, boom, 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 all these feeds, all these tweets coming out. I'm like, oh, crap. So, and when we got on the elevator, this couple comes in. Dude's, he was wearing boots like mine, I guess. He had them in his hand. He took them off so he could run. And she's over there like frantic, and she's like, oh my God, we were there. I just saw the people were just falling over, and I was like, oh crap, it's not good. So that was actually 2017, December or October 1st. So almost what 5? Wait, hold on. No, 7 years ago. Yeah, I was there. That's what happened in Vegas. Obviously, for the next day, they postponed all conference events on that Monday. Then they kind of had a limited program Tuesday. Most people left. It was just, it was a lot to take in. Some people just.
Normally those conferences, is it like a couple of thousand people?
Oh yeah.
Like, how do you store it?
It depends. Depends on where you're at, right? Depends on what you're doing. Like if for guys like me, to be able to go see the new products, see the new technologies that they're coming out, they have breakout sessions where you can learn different things, like how to troubleshoot a certain device, how to sell it, for the sales guys. So there's a little bit of something for everybody. I've gone to conferences as a delivery engineer / architect, and I've gone as a customer. So when I was at GTech as a telecom engineer, I actually went as a customer and got to experience that from, so I learned how to troubleshoot things differently for, like, I went to Cisco Live in San Diego, 2015.
So the value that you get out of it is kind of first-hand to see new technologies.
See some of the new technologies, learn about some of the different ways to troubleshoot and support. In some cases, you can even learn about new stuff. But at all conferences, if you want to certify, a lot of them will offer free certifications. So if you know some of the topics that are, some of the technologies that are there, and you want to try and certify.
You get started for free, and most things go for a couple thousand sometimes. Too.
Well, they're usually anywhere from a couple hundred or 100 to about 500. Just depends on the level of test. Some of them are even 1,000 or 2, right?
It's really much you're getting the value by just
by going to test, and that's where guys like me take advantage. Because if we have the ability to go test, and if you schedule them, because that's the only problem, you have to schedule them with everybody else. So they have a room like this or bigger, just set up with computers everywhere, and they're proctored exams. So you gotta leave your watch, leave your wallet, you gotta empty out everything, and just basically you and just about. No, just you and your clothes, and that's it. You don't have anything and they watch you test it. So
are they trying to influence you? So since you're deploying solutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Solutions. So you'll have your preferred equipment that you like to use.
Mm-hmm.
You use several different ones. You come to one. I think this is one that I can find. And so when you go there, they're salesmen, and they make commission. So. Of course, you're going to be like little incentives here and there to kind of influence and buy my product and use that to deploy. So is that something that you gotta have to?
That's something that I have to deal with all the time.
Like trying to be sold and you're trying to be like.
Here's a good example, right? So as architects, and especially in the pre-sale side, we get a little bit comfortable with what we're selling. Hey, I know this product inside and out. I think this is going to do great for you. Hey, you want to buy a Dell? So, and everybody jokes with me because they're like, oh, Mr. Dell, right? You're going to push Dell? I'm like, no, I push what's right. I talk about what's right. Dell has a lot of things in their portfolio that can help, but it's not the end all be all. There's other options out there. Some are better than others. And at the end of the day, as an architect, it is my job to help identify and help you as the customer identify what's going to be good for you, what's going to hurt the least, what's going to suck the least for you, what's going to be the best product in your scenario. And every scenario is different. There's no two scenarios that are the same. Even within the same company, different plants or different organizations within the company, they'll do great with this, but these guys over here, not so much. So it's just, you just got to be able to identify those and say, you're going to get this. You would be better off with this, And it's just understanding the entire, everything that's out there, and being able to say, I think this is going to be a better solution for you. And then you bring in the experts on that platform to tell you why, help educate. And that's the other big thing, education. Educating the clients.
So it sounds like you kind of take a look at all the risks that are possible, like all the worst case scenarios, and then try to kind of find a balance of which is going to be the least painful, like you said, the less devastating. It'll be the less amount of damage that happens.
Yeah, yeah. That should be our goal. How are we doing on time, by the way? Okay. And that should be our goal, right, as architects. Sometimes we lose sight of that. And we just say, well, you know what, this is the easy button. Go with this. And the easy button's not always the best. Not always. Most of the time it is, but not always. It's being able to step back and like, if I were the customer, how would I feel about this? How am I going to use this? Am I going to use it to its fullest? Am I going to benefit the most from this?
Do you interact directly with the client?
A lot of times, yes. Especially in the delivery.
Behind the scenes, you actually have like direct communication.
Yep. So, well, yes, but after in my area, it's technically called post sales. So after the sale has been made. So, for example, I just did a deployment last week. Yeah, actually, week before last. So, went to St. Louis, went to deploy 2 Cisco UCSX chassis. So, blade server chassis, similar to the ones you saw in the pictures earlier, but Cisco. These were sold by another company, and we were just doing the services for it. So they sold them. We got the bill of materials, everything that was sold in this thing. All the cables, all the memory, the CP, the blades, everything. We got a list of all that, and based on that, I take that and be like, okay, based on what you have, this is how you're going to connect it. These are the cables you're going to use because I see them in the order here. So we're going to connect it this way. You need to have these cables to connect to your networking. So I go through and I meet with the client and say, okay, based on what you have, this is what it should look like. Do you agree, disagree? Is this what you were sold? And usually we get oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. First we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and then we'll do this. And this is the part that's on site. This is the part that's remote. We go through all the details. We ask them, hey, are there any requirements for, do I need to dress a certain way? Is this in a plant? Do I need to have a hard hat? Because certain cases you might have to if you're going through you might need certain PPE to get into certain areas. I'll start asking the questions. Schedule the deployment. I go out and deploy it. And so yeah, and all that interaction is with the client. But this is happening after there's been an internal call with the sales team to get an idea of what was sold. And if there's any other meetings internally, like with other peers, to hey, this is what we got. Anybody see any challenges with this or any problems we need to be aware of? We collaborate on it. There's a lot of collaboration internally first before we even talk to the client. And then when we talk to the client, we present everything, how we see it, how we're going to do it, and make sure that that's what they're looking for. I mean, I've gone on site, I've gone to talk to clients, and they're like, oh, we already racked it for you, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm like, okay, and that's cool. In fact, hey, all right, that's less work for me, but you didn't have to. That was actually something I was on the hook for, but, it's your equipment. You do you.
If they did it not the way you would have done it.
That's happened. That has happened where I've gone in. That you got to kind of tread lightly, right? You kind of point you if it's going to work. Hey, look, I was going to put it down here because it's a heavier device. Put it towards the bottom. That way it doesn't. That way the cabinet's not top heavy. But this is fine. If this is, maybe you had, what's the reason? And I'll ask, hey, why'd you put it there instead of down here? Well, because we're going to add more down here, or we're going to put this device down here. We're going to put something else here. It's for future growth, whatever the case may be. So you just be respectful and say, hey, why did you do it that way? And just any reason why. May not have been the way you would have done it, or I would have done it, but it's not going to make any difference. There have been times where I've had to alter my installation because of the available gear. An example, when I was in Italy 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago. Yeah. When I was in Italy doing an install for, hey man, look, all I'm going to say,
How's the pizza?
you know what? I didn't even get pizza this time.
This time.
But, yeah, this time. I didn't even get pizza this time. Actually, I go for the other Italian dishes. Like, I had like, what was it that I had? Like a chicken marsala? Yeah, anyway. So, yeah, yes, I said this time. This is the second time I've been to that site. And ironically, the stuff I was installing was the refresh of the stuff I installed 4 years ago. 5 years ago. Wait, hold on. Yeah, 5 years ago.
So they didn't change it.
Well, no, they didn't change it. They got their 5 years out of it. And they're just refreshing with newer hardware.
So the solution worked, in other words.
The solution worked. The solution was set. The solution was great. They were happy. Oh yeah. Yeah. So so they come back and install the new stuff.
So like Dr. Salami was telling me, like, when you get into it, especially in the beginning, he's like, you kind of are a jack of all trades. You gotta have to wear all the hats. And it sounds like you were saying, it's like, yeah, it matters if you have the technical know-how, the knowledge, experience, the certs, all that stuff. You still need to know customer service, you still need to be professional. Because otherwise, even if you're disrespectful, you're not gonna be able to get very far.
So I'll tell you exactly what happened at this one. So I get on site and I start unboxing everything. The first thing, they typically leave everything in the box. So that way you're the first one to open it up. You're the first one. It's like Christmas. But is it really? Because it's turning into work, right? So I'm opening boxes. I'm getting things, cardboard going everywhere, plastic, styrofoam, just whatever, right? All the packing materials. I'm getting things out and I'm getting it staged so that way I can get ready to start putting it in the cabinet. Well, first snafu. They ordered the wrong power cables. That is, believe it or not, that is one of the most common errors in ordering and sales for my job. When you get the wrong power cables, you're at a standstill. The ideal thing is they ship with what are called C13, C13, C14, the C13, C14s or the C19, C20s, because those are not as common. If they ship with those, you're probably in good shape because guess what? Well, you can go to Best Buy or Walmart and get a C13 to NEMA 515, which NEMA 515, that's like standard plug. That's the actual specification for a standard wall plug. So the NEMA 515 to C13, that's what you use in the back of your computer at home, or your monitor, or your TV. That's the standard power cable. So if they have those in the data center, I can easily go to Walmart, Best Buy, get those cables. So
It's the backup power source.
Yeah. So the best case scenario is that it ships with the C13, C14, and I have to go get those, which are easily found. So that's kind of what happened in Italy, but with Italian plugs. Italians have a different standard, even different from the rest of Europe. Now they have plugs that'll support both the Euro plugs and their own standard, which they had up on the top of the cabinet. But they put their power on the top. So we shipped C13, C14. The only difference between the two plugs, male and female. C13 is female, C14 is male. So it looks like the same end, on both. Those are usually used for plugging into the back of power distribution units. PDUs, short, or UPSs. Either way. Well, they shipped them with these. And again, that's probably, of the bad scenario, that's probably the best case. Because, well, while they can't use them, it's easy enough to find plenty of C13 to Italian plugs or Euro plugs. Because they use them for all their computers throughout the building anyway. So I went to the client and I'm like, so her name was Christina. I said, Christina, we have a problem. We need 12 power cords. She kind of rolled her eyes. She's like, yeah, this happens all the time because most people will ship the wrong ones. So sure enough, she had a drawer of all the C13 to Euro plugs. So we got by. I was able to find 12. And even though it's the same voltage they use out there anyway, they in Europe they typically run 220. So it's the same cord. It's the same cord that I probably could have gone to an electronics store in Italy and found a handful of those too, if I needed to. Thankfully, she had them in stock. Now, when I installed it, my plan was to install low, because I got some heavy stuff in there. There's some storage units which have some heavy drives, so I put them low to keep the center of gravity low. But since the power cords are on top, and they were only about that long, I had to go high. So I plugged all the cords in and then dangled them, see how far down can I go to plug these things in. And it turned out to be right about here, about eye level. So everything I had to mount, even though I would normally mount down low to keep the center of gravity low, I had to mount it high. Thankfully, they have their cabinets bolted down, so they're not going to tip or anything. There's no hazard with that. So I had to go as high as I could to be able to plug them in. Now, if I had more control over designing that solution, I would have been sending them PDUs that mount in the back of the rack. So there's plugs all the way down. And I would have gotten them PDUs that had the C13, C14. So the plugs that they shipped with, just plug right in. But, so yes, mini hats, be flexible, and know what kind of things you can get away with within those specifications.
Nothing should be beneath.
Nothing is beneath you. So I racked everything. I mean, I sent a picture of it to a buddy of mine and said, I'm getting too old for this shit. Because, well, I go back to my hotel and I'm like, man, I'm sore. But you got to do it. So got it all racked. I configured the switches. So yes, I still dive into my networking chops whenever I need to. So I programmed the switches, installed the hypervisor. So ESXi is what they use at this company. So installed VMware ESXi once the servers were configured. Put IP addressing on all the servers so for the out-of-band management. Configured the NetApps, the storage, because that's the storage they use. So I put the base config on it so they can reach it. And at the end of the day, at the end of day 2 is typically when they like to do their handoff. So just was on the phone with them. So it was 9 o'clock Eastern, but I think 4 o'clock European time. So 4 in the afternoon for me, but early for them. So they had to get in early and make sure to do the handoff, make sure they could reach everything remotely, make sure they could log in. And once they saw that everything was connected the way it's supposed to be, I'm clear. On to the next site. So
Want to know where you're going next?
oh yeah. Yeah, so let's see. Of the international sites I've done this year, I've been to Germany, 2 different sites in Germany, Koblenz, Germany, and a little town in East Germany called, Quedlinburg is where I stayed, but Naturstadt was about 20 minutes away. A little bitty spot in the middle of Germany. And it would have been during the Cold War, would have been on the eastern side. So different atmosphere. Koblenz was very Western, almost like being here, right? A lot of people speak English. It's just a lot of things happening. There's things to do all night into the evening, right? The little town, Quedlinburg, they roll up the sidewalks at 6:30. That's it. Town shut down except for some brew pubs and a couple of restaurants. So it's a whole different environment. Not a whole lot of people spoke English out there, so I had to use my translator quite a bit. Plus, you know, I try to learn a little bit of the language at least so I can get by. You know, of course, I'm doing Duolingo, and it's like beer. Oh, okay, really? I didn't know how to translate beer. Not like I need beer, but okay, beer. Water, Wasser. Okay, that's easy. Bread, Brot. Okay, so I know how to order beer, bread, and water, and cafe. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like, I need more, you know, how do I find the restroom? Where's the library? You know, I don't know, just, anyway.
And they chose, like you said, that one place is very remote, very small, very quaint. Like, is it for a specific reason that they chose the site to be there? Is it because of that? Because it's like kind of isolated, it's more,
Yes.
it's safer?
Well, this company that I did these installs for is a large aluminum producer. So they produce aluminum for companies all throughout the world. They have plants, you know, a lot of plants here in the U.S., obviously in Europe, Brazil. So they all kinds. They supply PepsiCo and Coca-Cola with cans. They supply Reynolds with their foil. They supply Ford, Jaguar, Land Rover, and a lot of other manufacturers with the aluminum they use for their cars. So my F-150 out there is,
Major company then.
yeah. My F-150 out there is a product of their manufacturer. They make the aluminum that goes into that.
It's so meta.
Yeah. And so, you know, and it's funny, the place I was at,
So they sent you out there.
yeah. And the plant's out there because that's just where they ended up. And I guess,
Oh, they're headquartered up there as well?
well, no, they're headquartered in Atlanta.
Across the continent is where they, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, so they have them all over the place. They have plants all over the place. This same company, back in 2019, sent me to South Korea, to their plants out there, to do the same install. A pair of servers, a pair of storage systems, and a pair of switches. And
You ever had like food in Korea?
ever had Mexican food in Korea? No, but I had Chinese and Japanese. But, well, you know, it's funny. You know what's interesting is when people find out that I'm from Texas, the last place they want to take me is to a Mexican place. And I'm like, why? Well, we don't want to offend, or we don't want to, you know, because, well, right. But I tell you what, some of the best Mexican I have had in Chicago and in a little bitty spot in northern Wisconsin. Yes.
Think they allowed Mexican in there?
Well, you know what happened is, so it was for a casino. I was working for a casino. I was installing Cisco HyperFlex. So I was doing HyperFlex, and the guys, it was a Tuesday. Guess what they wanted? So they're like, well, on Tuesdays we usually go to this Mexican place, but we don't have to go there if you don't want to. I'm like, let's go. Why not? Yeah, I don't mind. You sure? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, look. I said, look, people always tell me, never eat Mexican north of Dallas. Why? Why not? I mean, okay, so we went. And I guess one of the plates I always like to look for to kind of see how, kind of a gauge, if they have it, carne asada. If they can make a good carne asada, dude, score. Sure enough, they had. I looked at the menu. I looked at what it came with. I'm like, okay, ooh, nopales. Okay, all right. Let's go. Let's do this. So, all right. So I order it, and we're eating chips and salsa, and the guys are like, oh, ooh, ha. You know, I'm like, so the waiter, I said, hey, ¿Tienes un salsa más picoso? And he kind of looks at me. His eyes got big. He's like, see? I'm like, bring it. So he brings out a bowl. And this stuff, I mean, I was like, there you go. That's what I'm looking for. So I was eating that shit. And one of the, can I try it? Yeah, try it. Try it, you know, sparingly. Dips his chip in there. He's like, ooh. I'm like, Yeah, that's good stuff, huh? I'll tell you what, that guy in Minnesota was, no, northern Wisconsin. Northern Wisconsin. Northern Wisconsin. Another place I had good Mexican, Davenport, Iowa. Yep. Yeah, again, they had two plants there. They have one that does the casting, where they actually melt down aluminum. So they take in a lot of recycled aluminum. So you have, in one part of the plant, they have all these like bricks of like compressed cans and anything else aluminum. They just, into bricks. And then they bring them over to the other side of the plant where I was working, and they put them into a big smelting pit and just start melting them. One thing about aluminum, it does not glow when it's hot. Not like you see in the movies, it's like orange and stuff. No, it does not glow. And they told me, they said, be careful. If you see aluminum, assume it's hot. Because there was a catwalk I had to walk over. So this particular plant, I had to have the full PPE. So I had FR jeans, so fire-resistant jeans. I usually just wore a t-shirt, because then I had a jacket that I put on that's FR rated with high visibility stripes on it. So it's my own. I bought it, and it's got the strap, the high visibility, fire resistance, hard hat, hearing protection, eye protection, steel toe boots. The whole get up.
Super hot there, so that's why I have the t-shirt, right?
Right. Well, just something else so I can take it off later, right? Well, so I had to walk over a catwalk that's about 5 feet, hovers 5 feet over an aluminum conveyor. So the aluminum comes out of the smelter and gets flattened out into this big long sheet about that thick, right? And as it rolls across, you can see the heat coming off of this thing. And when you walk across that catwalk, you feel it. And you're still 5 feet above this thing, and you feel the intense heat off of this thing. And I asked the guys, I'm like, how hot is it right there? They go, between 800 and 900 degrees. So
It doesn't look good.
it does not. It just looks like aluminum. So
Would there be a slight glow, the one in the bags, possibly?
not that I'm aware of. I don't think aluminum does that.
But you said the little waves, so like when you're down to the beach, you know how the road, it always looks like there's water or something, it's because of like the heat?
Yeah. Oh, you would see that, yeah. You would. In fact, I did. I mean, I could see like from just the little moisture that was in the air there, I could see it.
That happens when you have two different fronts of temperature.
On distance?
Yeah. No, I could see it, and I could feel it. That was even worse. That was the feeling it. I mean, that's a trip.
Causes that little.
John, before you wrap it up, tell us about the cybersecurity.
Oh yeah.
I've heard bits and pieces of it. I want to hear that.
So, as I mentioned earlier, things happen, right, in my career. I was with Dell Technologies up until August of 2013, and it just so happened I was the lucky number, from with their latest workforce reduction. It wasn't because of performance. It wasn't because of. It was just I fit the demographic. They had a very. So that was the beginning of August. Later on in that August, towards the end of the month, and this was last year, I get a call from one of my old coworkers at Insight, and he says, "Hey, you interested in doing some consulting work?" Right? I said, "Yeah, sure. I mean, anything at this point, just to keep some income coming in, right?" So I said, "Yeah, let's do it." He goes, "Okay, I need you to sign up with Field Nation." So I took my drug test and P test on a Tuesday, got the results in Wednesday, and I was on a plane Thursday. Mm-hmm. Now this I had to cover, because again, I'm a consultant. I was on a plane to Atlanta. This customer had been compromised, and bad. Of course, I didn't have any of the details until I got on site and actually started talking to the client and figuring out what happened. But they needed somebody that understood VMware and Windows, and could be there to work on site for weeks at a time, however long it took. Yeah, and they were paying to whatever. If I told them I needed to be there another 3 months, they probably would have kept me. But we worked till we were needed, until we were no longer needed, until the job was done, right? So what had happened with them is somebody, large corporation, a lot of products in their umbrella. That's about a user. They seem to think there may have been a disgruntled user, a disgruntled employee. So he kind of gave them up a little bit. At least to a point where they could get access. Not necessarily giving them their access, but giving them all the tools they needed to get access. So the bad actors, they called the help desk and said, "Oh, hey, I'm Bob Smith, director of HR. I'm locked out of my account. Can you reset my password?" Without, further validation, I said, "All right, Mr. Smith, we'll get your password reset. Oh, hey, and while you're at it, can you reset my multi-factor authentication too?" Boom, they had the keys to the kingdom. After they got in, and they were in for a while. They estimate they were in there at least 2 or 3 months.
So they got like the actual name of the person that works for the company, the title.
And they got a couple of them. They got a few, and
That was enough.
they got enough. Well, so they started kind of poking around, and they found somebody that had some measure of access, like an IT, and that was their.
That person. And they had enough information just to kind of get by to help this person to get that reset and get the access to get in. Wow, simple as that.
As simple as that. Social engineering.
So even just a little personal information can go a long way in causing.
Absolutely.
Can we talk about the incident that happened at the other side?
Which one?
The one that made the news. The one that actually made the news.
That's the one.
Oh, is that one? Okay. So that's the one where they actually owned it like in a couple minutes?
Oh, so when they figured out they were owned, of course, somebody sends an email, "Hey, look what I got." Pretty much dangled the carrot, say, "Hey, look what I got. I got access to your I've been in here for a while. I know how to take you down. Pay up." Well, at that point, they sent people physically to the data centers, like right away. Go to the data center, go to this device, pull the cables, cut the internet access. When the bad actor figured out what they did, because they cut their connections in one country, they already knew enough about all their connections throughout the world, and they rerouted, came in a different way, and then started deleting stuff left and right. But then they pulled the plug on that, but by then they had already done enough damage to ultimately cease operations for them. So it was our job to go in, start recovering some of the VMs that were, well, we had to, the other one that hit in the news, I know what you're talking about. We can talk about that one, CrowdStrike?
No, not the CrowdStrike.
Oh, okay. Well, so as a result of that, they employed CrowdStrike. Well, this is before the CrowdStrike incident that happened recently. They employed CrowdStrike to go in and start looking at, start doing forensics on them. So we would send them a VM. If we knew a VM that was compromised, we would take it, we would clone it, leave it on their storage, but then send a copy to CrowdStrike to start reviewing and trying to figure out where it originated from. Microsoft was involved because they corrupted the Active Directory. They corrupted the directory, so they screwed it all up. So they had to rebuild their directory situation. Yeah.
Do any of these positions or jobs, have you ever needed to get a top clearance or top secret?
So remember I mentioned Red River and the Fed work that they do? I was actually asked to go for I don't know what level they wanted me to go for, but they wanted me to get clearance, security clearance, so I could go work. They actually had a project for me to go do some data center installs on Navy ships.
So you had set foot aboard?
Well, I didn't actually do it, and here's why. Because I asked the question. I'm like, hey, if I want to go have dinner in Progreso, or go have drinks, or go do anything in, across the border, what happens? Well, you need to report where you went, who you visited, why you went. You have to take a log of all this data, everything about why you went there, and report in when you do that, if you have clearance.
Because they'll be notified, or they'll know that you crossed.
Well, they'll know, yeah, because, you have to scan your passport or your driver's license or something, and they can pull it up, and you're flagged. They'll be like, okay, so if you don't have something to present as to why, then there's some questions. And I was like, you know what? It's a lifestyle change.
Include correspondence, email.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, that would open up the company to being a target for that too. Family members. Mm-hmm. It really is a lifestyle change. Now, if you have that kind of clearance and you do work as a consultant or otherwise with that kind of clearance, the pay for that is substantial. It's a lot better. I mean, you get compensated for it, but it is a lifestyle change.
There's a sacrifice here that
Bingo.
you get paid for according to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's something secretive,
Yeah.
sensitive in nature, so
Yeah. And I probably couldn't tell you guys half the stuff I've told you.
but for those type of jobs, is it usually, or is it mostly going to be with the government, or is there other private entities that you also need a private clearance?
I'm sure there are private companies that do have the same, because they report to the government or they work for the government, but mostly for Fed.
It's all kind of connected.
Yeah, it's all going to be connected to the federal government. So, but with that, when I was with Red River, I actually, things that I didn't require clearance for, like the VA. They did a lot of work for the VA. So I actually went to go visit some VA hospitals up in Michigan to do some server installs. So it's not completely, you're not completely limited from federal work. It's just there's,
Stuff that requires, some of them does require clearance.
Yeah, there are data centers out there where there's somebody sitting there with a AR-15, or not an AR, an M16, waiting there to take you out if you go near a certain cage. Pretty much. There are those places like that. They may not be visible. They may be kind of tucked away somewhere, but they're there. If you walk into a data center and they say, yeah, don't even go near those cages. Just don't even look at them. Just walk past. And they'll usually have them blocked out, like you can't see into them. I experienced a data center like that in Canada, and it was a Canadian government data center. Well, it wasn't a data center for them, but they were in they had some space in that co-location facility. And they just said, yeah, don't go by that cage. Don't even go look at it. Don't even breathe on that cage. Don't fart in its general direction. Just stay away.
Okay, that's some place like that also. Like some buildings.
What's that?
Data centers like that also.
To a lesser degree, yes. The state of Texas has some data centers that are like that because of, and I was when I was a consultant with DIR, I was one of the few that was allowed to go into the data center because the data center had Department of Criminal Justice systems in it. So one of the guys that was a consultant had a DWI on his record. Sharp network guy, and it happened years ago. He had already taken care of it, but because it was on his record, he did not have access, unescorted. He had to have escort with him all the time from the data center. Me, because I had a clean record, that's another thing, just keep a clean record. Because I had a clean record, I had access. But again, the cages and the cabinets that are protected are usually isolated and locked, under lock and key. Yeah, cool stuff. I think the only thing I had was, oh, maybe. If y'all ever want to reach out, y'all can email me. Just let me know who you are, so I don't like send you to the spam folder.
It's molis.
Molis, yeah.
My sister's solis, that's why.
Yeah, I usually tell people because even down here, I'm like, they're like, molis. I'm like, yeah, okay. I gave up. I'm like, well, I grew up pronouncing it like molis, but like solis with an M. That's how I grew up. Now, if you ask half of my family in Galveston, they say molis. Yes, the Texas City side of that, or actually the Texas City side says molis. The Galveston side says molis.
I say molis.
Yeah.
I had the same trouble with my last name. It's Daluz, so a lot of people say Deluz, Dela Luz. Sometimes they'll even turn loose into Cruz.
I feel you. Yeah, it's interesting. And the only reason we found that out is because at a funeral, me and my brother were sitting there at the door. Hey, how do you say your name? Yeah, let's just clear the air. Let's just, so where does it come from? Nobody knows. We do have some roots back to Spain, but more along the Basque, more Basque than Spaniard. That's the only thing that we know. There's also a tie to Veracruz, but we don't know if name was changed when they hit Ellis Island. Because, things, he could have said one thing and then, all right, it's spelled like that, However, the person registering them in heard it, that's how they wrote it. And hey, that's your name now. Congratulations. Welcome to America. So we don't know. And all the sources that had that information, yeah. So, are we there?
That's it, Mr. Moss. Thank you again so much for.
No, hey, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I mean, I had to have the time. Thank you.